We have all come together in remembrance of Amber H, who, after 46 hours in the Megapark, died from a lack of oxygen caused by her face being submerged in the liquid we know as water. It was an accident, I swear. Amber H left behind a temporary drop in the park rating, which disappeared quickly because the park has unlimited money. Yes, that's how it works. I didn't code the game. Anyway, so in the last episode I worked on this pair of coasters, and there's still quite some work to be done, mostly in the landscaping around it, trees, and also we have this area of land right over here, which I skipped. I should have just built the coaster more in this direction, but okay. At least that gives us space to make a ride here. I realized we don't even have a boat rental yet, so I think it will be nice if the guests can ride some canoes right here in a little lake that I'm still about to create. Now, one user suggested that I try to make this path look sort of like the Great Chinese Wall. I might give that a shot. I think it will look pretty cool. Also, the coaster still needs a transfer track. That's what I want to use the space below here for. And when I'm done with that, I also still want to work on the shoreline over here. Well, yeah, basically in 3/4 of the map. Especially the underwater part, which I worked on here with the color differences on the water and a more irregular landscape, which still needs to be done in this entire half of the map. So yeah, lots of work to do. I think I should just get started. Alright, that's the transfer track done. What I want to do now is make a little boat rental here, so the guests can sail some canoes here in a lake that I will make. Now, something which many humans do is to just build, for a boat rental I mean, is that they just build a station and then leave the boats to roam in the water as they please, and then hope that they find their way back to the station. What I always just like to do is to make an invisible track instead, as this is a much more reliable way to get the boats to return back to the station without them getting stuck somewhere, which they always seem to do, or sometimes even if they find their way back, quite often you will find two boats both fighting to get back to the station again, the first in the same tile, while blocking the way for each other, keeping them stuck there eternally, which is a very long time. So, what I will do now is just start building a track, and then later, like half of the rides on this map, I will change it to a lift, which will render the track invisible. Boats will do a small turnaround under this bridge. There are rumors that many guests actually received their first kiss right under this bridge here, hidden away from the public eye. Sadly, it will also be their last kiss, because when they leave the park, they will despawn into nothingness. Now, one of the good things about turning this track invisible by turning it into a lift is that the canoes will also be able to row themselves. Anyway, that's probably not what we want, so I will just increase the minimum waiting time a bit, and I will change it to wait for a full load, and that will make sure that the boats will only leave when there are guests in them. That only applies to when it's open, though in test mode it will not wait for a full load, because once again it would be waiting for a very long time. Alright, as you can no doubt see, people are immediately flocking towards this newly opened ride. Guests have to wait for an hour to be able to board one of these canoes, although that's mostly because they can only enter with 2 guests, and it takes a while for 2 guests to accumulate. Anyway, I think that means it's a good time to do something about the number of guests in the park. Now, I could use cheats to make the number of guests higher, but there's actually a good reason why the number of guests doesn't go much higher than it does now, unless we wait for 50 years maybe. The reason for that is because in the scenario options, when I make a park, I usually set the park rating to be harder to increase and maintain. Basically it means 100 points get subtracted from the maximum park rating. And I also tick the option for guests being more difficult to attract. And basically why I usually set these options is to actually prevent overcrowding in my parks. Most of my parks are a lot smaller, and yeah, it's really annoying when there's thousands of guests in your small park. It will just make it look too crowded. But I think the park by now has reached a size where these options are no longer necessary. Now, another thing I do to prevent overcrowding is actually to make guests very unhappy when they enter the park. They start at 15% happiness, and their initial hunger and thirst are very high at 84%. This is all to decrease their happiness and to actually prevent the park rating from getting very high. Now, I actually want to attract more guests to the park now, so I've already disabled these options. That should already help a lot. And now I will just set their initial happiness to the maximum value and the initial hunger and thirst to the lowest value. By the way, for most of these fields you can simply use the scroll wheel when hovering above them to increase or decrease them. Anyway, any guests that come in now will be almost at the maximum happiness. They will have very low hunger, thirst, and yeah, it will also be less difficult to attract new guests. So probably quite soon we will see the number of guests starting to increase. Alright, I will now see if I can try to make this path look more like the Great Wall or something that resembles it. Alright, I don't know who suggested to me to turn this path into a Great Wall, but whoever did it, thank you. I like the idea and I think this looks pretty good. Alright, what's next on my list is to add trees and plants to this area and to do some landscaping around this drop over here. Alright, the coaster now really swings between the trees. I think that looks really good. Maybe later, in a later episode, well, at the end I'm probably going to do a few detailing episodes. Then I'll probably touch up foliage throughout the park, and then I might also touch up this area a little bit. But for now, I think this looks good enough. Okay, I think a task that I can now do in the entire park is work on the underwater area. Basically, this part has just been done with large with a large landscape tool, and it needs some finer details, and it also needs some layers with different colors, like I did over here. Alright, that was very boring to do, but it looks like you're still watching, so there must have been some entertainment value to that. Anyway, I think that was enough building for this episode. I kind of enjoyed doing this actually. It really made this area look nicer. And yeah, this shoreline of the park, it was long overdue, so it was about time that it happened. I still need to work on the actual above water part, on the beaches, and this shoreline itself also could still use some attention. But for now, I'm happy with the progress I made in this episode. Okay, what's left to do is to take a ride on this suspended coaster called Jinja. Alright, I hope you enjoyed watching me build, and I'll see you again in the next episode. See you later.